Hello and happy April. This is my birthday month. My birthday falls on April 14th, which makes me an Aries. So I've seen a couple of booktubers doing read like a certain zodiac sign vlogs and videos. So I wanted to join in the fun and read like an Aries this month since, like I said, it's my birthday month and I am an Aries. So let's talk first of all a little bit about the traits and the personality of an Aries. And I am going to be sharing the information about Aries from Allure. They posted a story on March 29th, so just a few days ago, and it is titled The Personality of an Aries Explained, and it is by Eliza Kelly. So Aries birthdays fall between March 21st and April 19th. So let's see what, according to Allure's Eliza Kelly, the traits and personality and characteristics of an Aries are. Aries loves to be number one. What? So it's no surprise that these audacious rams are the first sign of the zodiac. Bold and ambitious, Aries dives headfirst into even the most challenging situations, which is appropriate since the body part associated with Aries is the head. Like their fellow fire signs, Leo and Sagittarius, Aries is a passionate, motivated, and confident leader who builds community with their cheerful disposition and relentless determination. Uncomplicated and direct in their approach, they often get frustrated by they often get frustrated by exhaustive details and unnecessary nuances. This next part. They like things quick and dirty, a temperament also reflected in their sexual proclivities. Moving on, Aries is a cardinal sign that kicks off not only the spring season, but also the entire zodiac wheel. Astrologers believe that each sign learns the lessons absorbed by its preceding signs, both joyful and painful. In the case of Aries, however, there is no inherited wisdom. Aries leads with blind optimism, barreling through life with an electric joie de vivre that perfectly complements their distinctive impulsivity. These fire signs think after they leap, which often results in lessons learned the hard way. Aries represents the singular spirit. These rams adhere to an every person for themselves philosophy. While this self determination can be inspiring, Aries needs to watch out for selfish tendencies. This sign is ruled by Mars, the dynamic red planet named after the Roman god of war. Accordingly, these courageous rams are always armed and ready for battle. Aries is known for an explosive temper, and although their outbursts don't last long, it's definitely best to avoid fiery rams until the steam has dissipated. But when these brazen rams are not flying off the handle, they're upbeat, positive, and playful creatures who enjoy living life to the fullest. You can always spot an Aries excelling on the sports field, speeding down the highway, or organizing a vibrant party game. So that is some information about the Aries zodiac sign. So let's switch over now and let me tell you about the books that I'm going to be reading. But before that, you're going to actually see me back in March reading list recommended for Aries. So that way I could already have the books in hand when I got ready for the vlog. So first we're going to kick it back in time to talk about the books that I chose. And then we're going to move back to the present after that clip, and I will go specifically into the synopses of the different books that I will be reading for my Read Like an Aries vlog. So now it's time to find some book recommendations for Aries. Full disclosure, I am filming this part of the vlog at the beginning of March because I want to make sure that I have time to get the 4 books that I'm going to read for my Read Like an Aries vlog, because I want to be able to be ready to go once April 1st hits. Let's see. Well, I had filmed an entire clip where I actually shared my screen and went through my selection process, choosing my 4 books. For some reason, I am unable to locate that. I did film it on the same day in March that you saw the previous clip. Well, I think it's user error. I don't know what happened, but let's just move forward, right? We're just going to forge right ahead in true Aries style and get on with it. So let me start with the 2 horror books that I chose. So the 2 horror books that I chose, first of all, I chose Hide by Daniel Levine, because The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson is one of my favorite classics. So let's talk about what this book is about. Mr. Hyde is trapped, locked in Dr. Jekyll's surgical cabinet, counting the hours until his inevitable capture. As 4 days pass, he has the chance finally to tell his story, the story of his brief, marvelous life. Summoned to life by strange potions, Hyde knows not when or how long he will have control of the body. When dormant, he watches Dr. Jekyll from a remove, conscious of this other high class life, but without influence. As the experiment continues, their mutual existence is threatened, not only by the uncertainties of untested science, but also by a mysterious stalker. Hyde is being taunted, possibly framed. Girls have gone missing. Someone has been killed. In the blur of this shared consciousness, can Hyde ever be confident these crimes were not committed by his hand? Well, this sounds like a really interesting take on The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's kind of chunky. Yeah, 393 pages. No, wait, that's actually at the end. That's Robert Louis Stevenson's actual The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I've reread recently, so I don't plan to reread that for this. So let me try to get the page count here, which I should have done before I started, but I didn't. Okay. So the actual text for the book Hyde is 297 pages. Okay. So the second horror book I chose was Horns by Joe Hill. The only other novel by Joe Hill I've read is Heart Shaped Box, and I really loved it. I've read his short story collection, 20th Century Ghost, that of course has the black phone in it. I enjoyed that collection. I've had Nosferatu in my vampire section of my shelf for a while, and I haven't gotten to that one yet, but I'm excited to get to Horns. And yeah, yikes, this one's a chunky baby. 447 pages. So the premise of Horns. Marin Williams is dead, slaughtered under inexplicable circumstances, leaving her beloved boyfriend Ignatius Parrish as the only suspect. On the first anniversary of Marin's murder, Ig spends the night drunk and doing awful things. When he wakes the next morning, he has a thunderous hangover and horns growing from his temples. Ig possesses a terrible new power to go with his terrible new look, a macabre gift he intends to use to find the monster who killed his one true love. Being good and praying for the best got him nowhere. Now it's time for revenge. It's time the devil had his due. All right, now moving to the non-horror books where I'm really stepping out of my comfort zone here. So the first of these is Hell of a Book by Jason Mott. In Jason Mott's Hell of a Book, a Black author sets out on a cross country tour to promote his best selling novel. At the same time, Soot, a young Black boy living in a rural town in the recent past, is trying to survive. And the kid, a possibly imaginary child, appears to the author on his tour. As these characters' stories build and converge, they astonish. For while this book entertains, it's also about the nation's reckoning with a tragic police shooting that is playing over and over again on the news. Who has been killed? Who is the kid? What waits for the author at the end of his book tour? Unforgettably told, with characters who burn into your mind in an emotion packed plot. Hell of a Book is the novel Mott has been writing in his head for the last 10 years. And in its final twist, it truly becomes its title. And the fourth book I chose to read like an Aries is The Unsinkable Greta James by Jennifer E. Smith. I mean, the person's name is Jennifer Smith. I felt like that was fate, right? Just pulling me into this book, even though, like I said, this is definitely not my usual kind of book that I would read. Here is the synopsis. Just after the death of her mother, her first and most devoted fan, and weeks before the launch of her high stakes sophomore album, Greta James falls apart on stage. The footage quickly goes viral and she stops playing. Her career suddenly in jeopardy, the kind of jeopardy her father, Conrad, has always predicted. Months later, Greta, still heartbroken and very much adrift, reluctantly agrees to accompany Conrad on the Alaskan cruise her parents had booked to celebrate their 40th anniversary. It could be their last chance to heal old wounds in the wake of shared loss. But the trip will also prove to be a voyage of discovery for them both and for Ben Wilder, a charming historian struggling with a major upheaval in his own life. As Greta works to build back her confidence and Ben confronts an uncertain future, they find themselves drawn to and relying on each other. It's here in the unlikeliest of places, at sea, far from the packed city venues where she usually plays, and surrounded by the stunning Alaskan wilderness, that Greta will have to decide what her path forward might look like and how to find her voice again. And this book has a little questions for topics and discussion for book club at the end. But this book has 303 pages, and I forgot to say how many pages are in Hell of a Book. 319. So yeah, this is kind of a lot of reading. A lot of reading to do this month. Probably when I was checking out which ones I wanted to read according to the different articles I found online recommending books for Aries. Maybe I should have looked at the page count a little bit closer. But we have talked about one of the character traits for an Aries is just forging in ahead, just forget about the consequences or worry about these later, just forge ahead. So that's what I did, and so we will see. So I'm going to go now and read, because clearly I've got a lot of that to do this month. So check in with you next time. Bye. Hello, it is Wednesday morning, probably about a quarter after 10. I just got finished teaching a poetry class on Christina Rossetti a little while ago. I have another class to teach later today, and that class is a Norse mythology class. Right now, I'm looking over my planner trying to see what I need to get done today. So I do need to work on some more planning for my classes that are coming up next week and in the months to follow. I need to work on a writing project that I'm in the very beginning stages of, so I can't really say a lot about it. I need to do some research and some reading for this project. I need to check in with my grad student group so I can see if any of them have questions because I've mentioned this on the blog, on the vlog. I don't know about this vlog, but I've mentioned it on my channel anyway, that I mentor a group of grad students along with several other mentors too. So there's a group of us who are already done with our masters in English, and then we mentor a group of those who are in the final stages working on their final projects and things like that. Also, last night I got to page 46 in Horns by Joe Hill, which is the first book that I'm reading for this Read Like an Aries vlog. I'm enjoying it. I just have some issues, and they're similar to, or maybe even exactly the same as some of the issues I have with Joe Hill's father, Stephen King. Now, if you've followed my channel and you know anything about me, you know I'm a constant reader. I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. I actually just presented on a Stephen King panel last week in Chicago at the PCA National Conference. So, yes, I'm a huge King fan, but that doesn't mean that I don't have some issues. And one of the issues I have with King, I am having with Joe Hill in this book too. And I want to be careful how I say this. In my notes, in the margins here, I wrote why, just why, like his dad, I guess. There are certain viewpoints that some characters have that are extremely problematic, very bigoted, very racist, very homophobic. And I understand that people like this exist, unfortunately. And I understand that we're not supposed to like these characters, but I think we could do without some of the language that these characters use. I know this is a controversy and people have differing opinions, but we can get that somebody is a terrible person without all of that. And I just am uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to leave that at that. And you can let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree? If you disagree, what's your take on it? But moving on to other parts of this book, I am really intrigued by what's happening with the way that this main character is able to not only have people just dump their terrible thoughts on him, just literally speaking them aloud to him, but also in the way that if he touches another person, he can get visions of things that they've done in the past. And another one of the notes I wrote in here was like, damn, I'm glad that I do not have the ability to read people's minds. We have some very, very disturbing thoughts that people are thinking. For example, a trigger warning here for, I don't know, a lot of different things. But there's this little girl, and she spills out to the main character, I hate mommy. I want to burn her in her bed with matches. Main character in this novel is wanting to get help. He wants somebody to help him. You know, he's been to the doctor about the horns, and the doctor instead started spilling all this, again, horrifying, deep, dark thoughts instead of really focusing on this character's issue with having horns. And so he feels that this main character, his name is Ig. So let me just call him Ig. So Ig is feeling rather desperate. So he decides to go to the church and talk with his priest, even though he hasn't been, at church in a long time. And he says, Father Mold might be immune to the influence of the horns. If anyone could resist the power of them, Ig thought, wouldn't it be a man of the cloth? And so my note there was no, this father, this man of the cloth will probably have the worst and most disturbing thoughts of all. I was not wrong. They may not have been the worst of all, but they were pretty damn bad. In addition to his spilling his guts to tell Ig of some of the extracurricular activities he was currently involved in, even though he's a priest. So I don't know. I feel like this book is really going to send me down into I'm smiling, but at the same time, I feel like it's really going to send me down into this dark, despairing pit of, oh my God, is this really what people are like? So I'm definitely, when I finish this one, going to read the one I have, The Unsinkable Greta James, because I do feel like as much of a horror reader as I am, I think I may need to have a little bright spot in the mix here. So those are my initial thoughts on Horns by Joe Hill. I'm going to go now and start taking care of the things on my to-do list, and I will check back in with you possibly today, maybe tonight, and I will see you then. Bye. Hello, it is Thursday, April 4th, around 8:45 in the morning. I do not teach any live classes today, so I've got some time to plan and work on a few other things, but I'm having a kind of a difficult time today trying to get motivated to do anything. You may recall that this past August, my husband had some serious health issues and ended up having to be hospitalized for 2 weeks and had emergency surgery. He is continuing to have some issues, and he got some information back yesterday that shows that there could be something going on. I don't want to give a lot of personal details, but at any rate, he's got to have a scan and a follow-up to try to see what is causing these certain issues that he's still having. So that's obviously weighing heavy on my mind. And like I said, I don't want to go into a lot of personal details, but there are obvious concerns that I have and that he has. So I'm glad that I don't have to teach live classes today, because I'm not sure that I could have pulled myself together for that. I've also mentioned on my channel before too that I am diagnosed with major depressive disorder, which is a struggle even day to day with no extenuating outside circumstances. But when you add something like this onto that issue that I already have, it's very difficult. So I will keep you posted on if what we find out, depending on when and how it all works out. So I would appreciate your thoughts and concern over this matter. But I am going to switch gears now and talk about horns, which is the purpose for this vlog, right? Is to read like an Aries. So I made it to page 82 in horns last night, and I am still enjoying it. Once again, I just want to reiterate the fact that I am sure glad that I cannot read people's minds because, as I mentioned before, the main character, Ig, his girlfriend has been SA'd and murdered like a year before we're picking up at the beginning of this story. And initially, he was accused, but he was unable to be brought to trial because some evidence was lost, stuff like that. So he was never completely charged, but he was also never able to be completely cleared. And a lot of people still think that he is the one who actually did this to his girlfriend. And as I talked about before, he can read people's minds. So he goes to visit his family after the experience he had with the priest. And he feels like if anybody can help him, maybe his family can. And so his grandmother is there, and you find out that she thinks he did it, and she says horrible things to him. Again, like I said, people's thoughts just come spilling out to him. So he's very upset by what his grandmother thinks of him. And then he interacts with his mother and his father, and it's very similar. They all think he is the one that actually did this to his girlfriend. The point where I left off, he is interacting with his brother, and his brother, named Terry, just dropped a bombshell on Ig, and I was like, what? And that's kind of where I left off. So, as I mentioned, I am enjoying it. It's getting a little more interesting the further that we go. And I was trying to think. I have my planner for today, but I'm just going to give myself a lot of grace, as I mentioned, because of the, everything that is weighing on my mind. But the plans that I do have for today, I needed to film a March wrap up video, which may or may not happen today. I don't know. Depends on where my brain is. I need to work on some of my classes. As I talked about, I don't have any live classes to teach today, but there's still planning and prepping that I need to do for next week and in the coming months and next academic school year. I need to be working on some stuff. I'm still in the very earliest stages of a writing project that I'm hoping to be able to focus on, but again, it may or may not happen today. And I need to check in with the mentor group that I am a part of for grad students. So that is really all I have to say right now. And I will check back in with you probably sometime later today. And I will see you then. Bye. It is Friday morning, about 7:30. I'm getting ready to go to an appointment with my psychiatrist. So I am drinking my coffee, putting on makeup. There are several things I want to talk to my psychiatrist about today in terms of not only the circumstances with my husband and his health that is really weighing heavy on me. But also, I've had such an incredibly difficult time focusing on anything lately. I feel like I try to sit down and look at one thing or focus on one thing, and then all I can do is start noticing 50 other things that need to be done. And I'm having a very, very hard time with that. I feel like sometimes too, people don't understand. They kind of look at what I can do and they don't understand how hard it is for me to do those things. I feel like people don't get it, especially in terms of, for example, I just traveled to Chicago and gave a presentation at a conference. And so I feel like sometimes people look at that and they say things like, oh, you couldn't really have depression because you can go and you can do something like that, and you can't really be having that hard of a time focusing because you were able to put together a presentation. But it was just the most and I keep using this word, just incredibly difficult time for me trying to put together my presentation and trying to organize it. It was just, it felt almost impossible, even though I was taking from my thesis. So I already had the ideas, but just having to pare down, a thesis into a 15-minute presentation, it was just overwhelming. And yes, I did do it, but it took a lot of time. It took a lot of tears. It took a lot of support from my husband. So yeah, I don't want anyone to misunderstand and, have the idea that just because people can accomplish things that they're not struggling mentally, because that's just not true. I'm sorry. That was a tangent. Anyway, let's talk about Horns by Joe Hill, because I think that's what you're really here for. But again, this is my channel, so you will see. You'll get what you get. So I made it to page, let me see, 119 of Horns. I'm still enjoying it. And I know I'm trying not to compare Joe too much to his father, but I can't help it. I just can't help it. And the main part of the story that I just was reading last night was a flashback to Ig, the main character's childhood. And it was really talking, I feel like, kind of trying to establish the relationship Ig has with his brother Terry. And I feel like Terry's going to play a very important role in the current timeline too. So we're kind of getting a backstory on their dynamics with each other and their dynamics with the other kids who are still a part of their lives when they grow up. So I'm still, like I said, having a good time with it. And I will check back in with you maybe later today. This afternoon or this evening, my daughter and her partner are going to come over. So that's going to be a good time. We can hang out, watch probably a horror movie because it's fun. My daughter and I, we are huge, excuse me, horror fans. My husband, he just kind of gets pulled along. He's not a big fan, but I think he's kind of a fan of me, so he's willing to suffer through the horror. And my daughter's partner is also not huge into horror movies, but like my husband, he will watch movies with her. So it's a good time for us to kind of get together, and my daughter and I'll be like, whoa, yeah, having the best time, and look over at my husband and her partner, and they're like this. So that's a good mental break too. So I feel like I'm doing the heavy important, I mean, it's not important to hang out with my husband and my daughter and her partner, but I'm doing that heavy self-care, the not so fun part of self-care, seeing my psychiatrist this morning. But then I get to have the more fun and relaxed atmosphere tonight. So I probably talked too much in this clip, but I'm gonna go now and finish my makeup so I can get to my appointment. And it was a big show. It's like 10 hours worth. Can you say good morning? Can you say good morning? Hello, it is Saturday morning, about 10:30. You will definitely hear my daughter in the background, but I wanted to come and check in and give you a little bit of information about what's going on here. So I had my appointment with my psychiatrist yesterday, and so we are going to try different medications. So that's going to be interesting while I taper off one and start another one. The new one that he's putting me on should be hopefully helping me with my focus and my concentration issues and my brain fog. And also, I mentioned in a previous check-in that my husband was having some health issues Unfortunately, he was hospitalized yesterday afternoon. And so I'm here with my daughter this morning. I'm waiting to hear back from my husband to find out if he's going to come home today or what's going on. And then I got to square things away with one of my older daughters to come stay with my younger daughter if I have to go to the hospital. So all of that is going on. But I just want to switch over and talk about Horns by Joe Hill. I am still working my way through this. I feel like this vlog is going to go forever, and I still technically have 3 other books I'm supposed to read. But I made it to page 193 in Horns last night, and I am still enjoying it. We're getting a backstory now, too, on our main character, Ig, and his girlfriend who was murdered. Her name is Marin. So we're getting the kind of details of the beginning of their relationship and then the kind of last interaction they had before she was murdered. So that's about all I have to say right now. I'm going to go and try to see what I need to get done today and if I'm going to be at the hospital with my husband, all of that. But I'll check back in some other time. See you then. Bye. Hello, it's Monday morning, April 8th. It's a little after 8 o'clock. Today is the day of the eclipse. In my area, we're getting like a 79 point something percentage of the eclipse. So it's not a total eclipse here, but it's going to be pretty significant. I've got my cup of coffee as usual, right? And let's just kind of get caught up on things outside of what I'm reading first, and then we'll move into my thoughts on what I've been reading for this Read Like an Aries vlog. So, thankfully, my husband was released from the hospital over the weekend. He actually went back to work today. He was diagnosed with Graves' disease. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about that, but I will just say that it is something that he can take medication for so it can be controlled and managed. And speaking of medication, let's go ahead and discuss my medication too. I am in the process, like I mentioned previously on a check-in, in the process of switching from one medication for my mental illness to another. And this transitional phase is kind of difficult as you taper off one medication and kind of adjust to the other. So I'm dealing with some mental stuff and still dealing with a lot of issues with focus. But hopefully, once this new medication gets into my system and it's, therapeutic dosage, I'll be able to focus more. So, keeping that in mind, I did finish Horns by Joe Hill. I ended up giving it 3 stars. While I did enjoy it, it was just not anything that was extremely memorable to me. And I did start The Unsinkable Greta James by Jennifer E. Smith, which is one of the books that I chose that was recommended for Aries, that was not in the horror genre because I wanted to branch out a little bit for this video. I got like 40 something pages into this book and I said I just can't do it. So we're following our main character who is a rock star and she has had a panic attack on stage. I think it's like a few months or weeks or something before we pick up in this story. And as the story begins, she is going on an Alaskan cruise with her father. Her mother had booked this cruise for herself and for our main character's father, but then her mother ended up passing away. So the main character is kind of taking her mother's place on the cruise with her father so he won't have to go alone. They have a bit of a strained relationship. Her father doesn't necessarily approve of her career path. So we're dealing with that. But then there's this man that our main character encounters on the cruise ship, and it already is feeling very insta-lovey to me, and I just can't. I just can't right now. Maybe if things were different in my life with my own health and my husband's health, I could give it a shot, but I can't, and it's making me feel very slumpy, and I just don't want to deal with that right now. So I would say, at least this is my thought, right? I would say that as an Aries, part of my personality is to forge ahead and do what I want to do. That's part of that fire sign, right? That fiery personality. So I kind of decided that since this was sort of an adventure type, this young character or whatever on an Alaskan cruise, that I would swap over and do All Who Wander Are Lost Destination Horror Stories by one of my favorite authors, Gemma Amore. And since this one is also about destinations and it's definitely in the horror genre, but I decided I would pick this one up. And I've only gotten part way into the first story in the collection, only probably about 5 pages, but I'm already enjoying it. And like I said, Gemma Moore's writing just grabs me, pulls me in, and makes me excited to read. So this is the book that I needed. So I apologize that I'm not getting to The Unsinkable Greta James. I am not sure what's going to happen with the 2 other books I was supposed to read for this vlog. But as for right now, we're going with this one. I am going to get off of here, finish putting on makeup, and get some other task done. I want to make some banana bread today, so I'll get some footage of that. And I will check in with you sometime, probably later this afternoon or tonight. See you then. Hello, it is Thursday morning, April 11th. It is about 9 o'clock a.m. It has been a couple of days since I checked in. This month has just been really hectic with different health issues for my husband. He is doing better. Like I said, I think I checked in maybe Monday. He has gone back to work this week. And we're still waiting for him to get in with an endocrinologist to kind of see what the plan is to deal with his Graves' disease. As far as my mental health, I'm still adjusting to the new medication that I'm on. Sometimes I feel like I can see a little break in the clouds where I feel like I'm coming out of the brain fog and concentration issues, but then it's like I go right back and start struggling again. I have been teaching my classes this week. I don't actually have any to teach today, so I'm going to be trying to catch up on reading, working on some writing projects, and also packing because we're leaving tomorrow to go spend the weekend at my parents' house and visit with them. And my birthday is Sunday, so I'll get to celebrate with my parents. So let's get back to talking about what I've been reading. I mentioned last time I checked in that I had started All Who Wander Are Lost by Gemma Amore. I've only gotten 2 stories into it so far. And I'm not going to try to talk about every single one of the stories because this vlog is already going like crazy long anyway. But the first one was called There's Something in First Landing State Park. And that's kind of like a eco horror, creature horror. I gave that one 4 stars. This story has some really nasty descriptions of what this creature looks like, but even worse, what this creature does. I was just like, ooh, but I liked it. This second story is called Reunion, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. It deals more with relationships and dealing with past mistakes and having the past kind of come back to haunt you. So I'm going to go now. I may check in later today. If not, I will check in tomorrow, but I will talk to you then. Bye. Hello, it is Saturday morning, about 11:45. I am visiting my parents. It is so peaceful here. I'm glad that you could join me on this vlog. I am going to probably maybe, hopefully, finish All Who Wander Are Lost at some point today. But for the rest of this Read Like an Aries vlog, it hasn't gone quite as I planned. Tomorrow is my birthday, and we're going to do a little celebration here with my parents today. So I'll check back in at least a couple of more times, but meanwhile, I hope you enjoy this view. See you next time. Bye. It is Monday morning, April 15th. I am obviously back at home. You will hear my daughter in the background. She is out for spring break this week. So I had a nice birthday. I had a wonderful weekend with my parents, and my wonderful husband grilled steaks for us and did baked sweet potatoes, and we had salad, and my parents got me cupcakes and champagne. So 49 is here now, and I'm gonna enjoy this last year in my 40s before I hit the big 50 next year. Like I said, we did spend the weekend at my parents, and it was a nice visit. But at the same time, it is difficult because I've mentioned before on my channel that my mother has Parkinson's, and so it's it's a bittersweet time sometimes to spend time with her, but I'm glad that I got that time with both of my parents. And it had been a long time since I was actually with them on my birthday because they live 3.5 hours away from us now. So I don't always get to go on my birthday. So that's something that I will treasure. So back to the reading like an Aries. I guess you could say in some ways this vlog was a fail because I only got to one of the books that I had selected to read for this Read Like an Aries vlog. So that book was Horns by Joe Hill. I talked about it at the beginning of the video. The other book that I did attempt that I had picked out to read for this video to kind of step out of my comfort zone of horror and read like an Aries was The Unsinkable Greta James, and I ended up DNFing that book, which I talked about at the beginning of this vlog. One of the books I was supposed to get to and just did not is Hell of a Book by Jason Mott. So I do want to read this. It just didn't quite happen with this Read Like an Aries vlog. And the other one that I was supposed to read that I had picked out to read like an Aries is Hide by Daniel Levine. And this one is just so thick that I didn't have time to get to it for this vlog. But I did pick up a book because I couldn't finish The Unsinkable Greta James, and it was putting me in a really, slumpy mood, and I didn't want to be in a reading slump. So I picked up this short story collection from one of my favorite authors, Gemma Amore, and this is All Who Wander Are Lost, Destination Horror Stories. And I did finish this book. I would say overall, I would give it a 4. A lot of the stories were 3s for me, and a lot of the stories were 4. Unfortunately, I didn't get any 5 stars. I talked about the first couple of stories earlier in the vlog, and I'm not going to try to go over all of them, but I will say if I had to pick my favorite from this book, it is probably going to be A Gentlewoman Abroad. And this is about a woman who is traveling across Russia, and she's on a train, and she makes some very horrific discoveries about certain events around her and herself. And the other one that I really enjoyed a lot was Christmas in Antarctica. So this is about a couple who takes a trip to Antarctica. They're taking an Antarctic cruise, and something very unsettling and uncanny happens, and then it turns into like full out cosmic horror. So I enjoyed both of those. So if you have followed this vlog, thank you so much. It did not go exactly as planned, but I think that fits for reading like an Aries because we often fly by the seat of our pants, so to speak. So I thank you for watching. If you would like to subscribe, I would love to have you here on my channel. I would love it too if you would hit that like button, share this video if you think others may be interested in reading like an Aries. And I thank you for all of your support. I will see you in my next video. Bye.